Welcome. It's 5 o'clock and it's Friday and it's Frequency Friday with me. I'm karenann macdonald. Thank you for joining me. I thought we'd start doing this on a weekly basis, so I'm glad that you're in the chat room. If not, you're going to be seeing it hopefully on the replay here. So hopefully we'll give the room a few minutes and we'll see who remembers from last week what we're doing. Anyway, I wanted to thank everyone for joining us because there is so much going on. Have you guys not felt that in the last couple of days? That's absolutely, can you keep up with it? I've got to have my lemonade here just to keep up with it, and a couple power vitamins and minerals just going in. So anyway, thank you for joining me. I'm coming to you. I'm on the road right now, and we are in presently the Siniak territory that's otherwise known as the West Kootenays and the Slocan Valley and Lakes of beautiful the Siniak territory, which is lower British Columbia. So anyway, this is the new kind of rock place. So let's talk about what's going on in these areas and what I know. What do you know? Add into the chat room. We'll talk a little bit locally. We're still having the fiasco going on at the local Edgewood, which is just on the Arrows Lakes. It's kind of between the West Kootenays and getting into the Okanagan. So it's the Edgewood Ostrich Universal Farm, getting to be the clowns and not so funny stuff. But, it's getting to be like a 3-ring circus. I cannot get over how many people have not done their due diligence and not looked at all the evidence. I suggest people go to Canuck Law. And at Canuck Law, actually, she has done some amazing background. Not only took the 37 pages, I think I read, of the document, but also broke it down into lay language. And you're going to see all the perjury, all the things that are omitted, things that are of great concern, things that actually they admitted to that more than, shows the guilt that they're having. What we have on site, and there's a wonderful man. He was a former UK forensic investigator and a policeman, now doing cyber security and stuff like that in Alberta, is David Dixon. And he's been on several shows lately on Twitter, even on the Real Housewives of Alberta. I didn't know there was anything, but apparently we have 2 women that are the Real Housewives of Alberta. So on Rumble, take a look at that. He's also been on Lionheart Media as well with Daniel Freyhart, which is Viva Free's brother. Take a look at that. So David Dixon brings an amount of immense background and thoroughness, and actually, you can just see it's amazing how his mind actually works. He's been on and off for 2 weeks now on a Rumble and YouTube channel. I encourage you to do that. Also on Twitter, it's called Maverick Media. So if you go and take a look at Maverick Media, it's run by someone, Rick Walker, and I've been actually on his show about 2 weeks ago, just because of the concerns some of the elders recommended me. So I spoke with him and gave him our perspective. So a little different than the Canadian perspective, which of course they didn't like the idea that, when I start bringing to the table that Canada is actually a bank account. It's been insolvent, dissolved, and in bankruptcy. And so a lot of things are in there. And we want to welcome Colin's in the room. Hi, pal. He goes, how are you? So if we need any news from across the pond, I'm sure Colin will tune us in. Colin as well is really well versed in international and current affairs. He's also really right up on some of the things that we talk about when we're talking about biological warfare and what really cybersecurity and biotechnology can do in something called the Wide Area Body Network. And for that, I refer to a colleague of mine and a friend is Sabrina Wallace. And Sabrina Wallace has got a Synergy channel, and that's I'll put in the channel because it's actually, as you think, synergy. It's not like psychology. It's PSINERGY, and it's on Odyssey. So I encourage you. A lot of people, I'm not even sure how they don't know that we've got an Odyssey channel. But anyway, take a look at that. For those that want more of a North American or a Canadian perspective, you can certainly look at someone called Non-Vaxxer 420, and he's on Rumble as well. So take a look at that. And again, I will put those in the chat room for you guys. So that's really what I wanted to say, is just a little bit more just to update you on the ostrich fiasco here. There are still people going in, and we've had people like Shadow Davis. We've had people like Maggie Braun. These people are really involved in private member associations or have their own podcasts, and they're coming in from Winnipeg to all across the areas. And unfortunately, we're getting a lot of sometimes natives in from the reserves, just again, lack of education and not what's going on. When we have bioweapons, and this is just, I'm going to give you the 2-minute scenario. David Dixon was able to find, as he spoke to Rick Walker with Katie, the daughter of the ostrich family people, and also Dr. Stephen Pellick, who's from UBC and is a private guy that does basically gene editing and plays with these antigens. They were unaware and hadn't even looked at the vials while they were making some of their research decisions or affidavits for the court. Like, how incumbent did they forgot to do their due diligence? Like, how can you actually make a report or some sort of, educated professional opinion when you haven't even examined or looked at it or been there or talked to the people and actually know what the hell was injected? What we do know in Japan is that Japanese people came over here from the university and students, worked apparently with the mother and inject some of this biotech. So it wasn't one thing. There could have been 20, 40, 80 adjuncts that were put in. This university is known to work with level not only 3 bioweaponry, but bio 4. And when you get into hemorrhagic type of things and you're getting like people bleeding out their butts and their eyes and their mouth and their nose out at the same time, which is what biowarfare is, by the way, depending on how it's presented, is that you need biohazard material and putting it into an open pen that anyone can touch. And I've seen people touching, I've seen how close they're doing. Again, they didn't have proper containment, isolation, or handling protocols, or even know what they are properly, because you're talking of someone that's got almost like a kindergarten kind of knowledge or understanding of this. And when we catch the perjury, it leads to who that is. Even to suggest that they were the owners of the farm, that is even in contention, because now people through Canuck law have found that, guess what? They don't own it either. And there's an inter-family feud going on because it's her sister that owns it. So I have talked, because of the talks I've gone out, just to let you know, I've talked to several people on the acreages around there. I've also talked to several people that are actually farmers that have called me, and right to family members. They are so concerned about what's going on. And why wouldn't you be? Why would you drag people into a leper colony? And I've already been able to ascertain that people that were there, even in the original Ostrich Fest opening ceremonies with this Colin Ross, who's known as Big Bear, which I'll question probably that these days too. I want everyone's bloodlines. I want them identified. They are claiming to be clans or tribes or being even in charge when they have never been authorized by people in authority. And that would be the actual clan mother for the Bear clan. And when we say no is no and stay away from there, you don't start enticing people in with candy and candy floss and, the local radio station and bouncy castles. That doesn't work here. And dressing up as Batman and Superwoman and whatever else they are parading in Kelowna nearby. So do take a look at this, because there are so many psychological operations going on. It's not even funny. So it's created a real division in our community. And, when people, the only thing they've got to say at me, can you imagine? Colin, you'll love this. You're creating division. You're not in unity. You're not standing united with us. So I said, why would I? Why would I go down like a lemming off the bridge, right? Just because you want to jump off the bridge doesn't mean the rest of us want to, or our children, or go to places and come back with possible contamination. So I've already had one report documented that someone that was there actually got sick, nauseated to the point that they were having angina, chest pain, and had to leave within 10, 15 minutes after being touched with people there. So again, not everyone is aware of it. Not everyone has sensitivity. Not everyone can feel energy, and some people misinterpret it. So there you go. That's the end of my ostrich report this week. And what else is exciting? So we've got the G7 summit. Good gosh, I'm so glad I'm not in Calgary. I can imagine the fiasco going in as I'm getting reports. I've had 2-3 reports already in this week, because Calgary, Kananaskis, right? Some of the First Nations areas there, and the Three Sisters right before you get into Banff, into Alberta, and your really nice resorts and ski retreats and all sorts of things up there. And of course, that's where I get my oils from. One of my suppliers is Nevessence Oils, and Tony is definitely right in the middle of the fiasco out there at Banff right now. So things are being rerouted. People can't go where they want to be. And of course, Donald Trump's entourage have just, they flooded in there a few days ago. So between what's going to go down in Washington with the parades and his birthday, we'll also be seeing the fiasco coming in Calgary. So make sure some of these things are targeted, as you've probably heard. And Colin, I think we're all aware that there is the potential for any kind of incidents, and I'll just say false F-legs coming in. So you guys need to be prepared. So this is something I actually wanted to get into a little bit. So those are some of the new things anyway I've heard. And again, when you start getting things like, Trump 6.0 and Zelensky 3.0 and Carney 2.0 and everyone else and their dog coming in there, there's bound to be stuff happening. So I think that is going to be, one of the places definite to watch this week. So if it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. And so we got a lot of things happening around there. So north of Edmonton into the Peace River, lots of direct energy fires going on. We see things burning up left, right, and center all the way into the northern part of British Columbia. There's a few down in our area, but not too bad yet. Not as bad as what we're seeing, obviously, on the borders of Saskatchewan and getting into Manitoba. That's just a towering inferno. But again, it parallels, as people were talking about, we think it's the mines and the lithium mines and everything else. Well, more importantly, is it actually mimics exactly the maps that I have for the World War II bunkers that were apparently decommissioned, but I don't think they really were. So something's being shot down. It also mimics some of the tunnel systems and the submarine and the waterways underneath. So these are some very cool things in there. So anyway, I don't know if you guys have any questions or anything you want to go over this week, but that's where I'm kind of at. I think it's a great weekend. I've had power go out on and off, so I don't know if you guys have been having problems with electronics, but we certainly are noticing that in this area. And I'm really excited because this weekend coming up, I got like 6 more sleeps, and David Hickey from Crystal Journeys is going to arrive into the West Kootenay. So we're going to go and we're going to do a West Kootenay run here, and he'll be kicking off in Winlaw on Friday, June the 20th. So Winlaw Hall will be having lots of excitement. We christened it and did the baptism there a few months ago and opened up the new revamped place with new management. And I'm going to see it here in New Denver. So I am excited. So there is going to be several of us. One will be Catherine Brochu out in the Cusp. She'll be doing light language and running with a whole bunch of tuning forks. So we'll see what she comes up with for a couple hours. David Hickey will do an afternoon concert. And I am so excited because he'll be starting at 3 o'clock. And from 4 to 5, I'm actually going out and I'm going to start teaching. So I'm going to have the Genius Biofeedback. We'll be having a frequency day there. So instead of Frequency Friday, it will be my frequency Saturday afternoon. I'll be taking in the lymphoma chairs. We'll be taking in the amethyst beds. We'll be taking in the farm for red. And of course, we're going to take my new little toy. And if you guys haven't seen that, that is something here called the Neurovisor. It's been a marriage between basically Genius Biofeedback and Garnett Dupuis. So Ryan Williams at Genius Insight Health Apps got together with another old friend. Of course, we're all from the old biofeedback schools. All of us were like 20, 30 years old already doing that. But anyway, this is a new kind of, it's a 9 LED, which doesn't mean bad. It means light emitting diode. So basically we can get these going and they start flickering at different, like a little different than a strobe light. And of course, if you're photosensitivity or you have epilepsy, this is not for you, but everyone else is fine for. So this literally, if you can hear, I don't know if you can hear, but it snaps on really quick. It's very lightweight. I feel like I'm a miner or something, or out in the Kootenays here where we have our headlights. Anyway, this literally will sync into the actual music, and there are over 100 and some programs. And of course, with the addition of the Genius Biofeedback, we have close to 150 to 200 programs available for people. So to do what you call microdosing, neuroplasticity. And of course, for those people, if you don't like things flashing at you or you're scared about having something near the brain, well, simply you can put it somewhere else. It does not have to go on the third eye, but it is a very cool thing to take a look at. And what we're seeing is just a huge change in people's ability to be creative, to have focus, to get targeted concentration. This is huge. So it's all you need is about 11 to 20 minutes a day, not very much. So I think this is really kind of cool. So Colin's got some interesting stuff to say. He said, wife's been hit by earthquakes almost every night in southwest Turkey. That is an issue, isn't it? And those people, if you want to monitor the USGS locally or look at the worldwide quakes, it's absolutely horrendous what's going on. I've been noticing tremors here too. And again, I think people should be looking. I like to look at Zeta Talks. There's Earth Master. There is Mr. MB33 going on, and also calls Dane Wigington. You've got that stuff. And again, Bennett, Suspicious Observers right now. So Stefan Burns, there's so many people out there. Everyone's screaming and saying, take a look at this. This is serious. You know, when you start looking at 7,000 little quakes, it's like Braxton Hicks. Someone's about to give birth here pretty soon here. And then one of the things, the EMF meter spikes, you must be reading my mind, at 15, really driving to work past the wind turbines on the motor freeways here at the RF. Now that's interesting that you bring that up, because you know what I brought to sit right next to me? My meters. Okay, so these are basically different meters that you can get, and that's actually a little bit what Colin's referring to here, is that you can get actually some of these different meters, and on here what can happen is that you can measure not only radiation, but you can also go in, and this is the GMC 600. Okay, so we can start measuring different things like radiation. You can also get, I have the high-tech ones, but I just grabbed this one. This is my one for the fridge as well. Is that you can get also what's going on with the radio frequencies and EMF, and I've got tri-fields and stuff too here. So these are always different things. Like I said, they go from 50 to several hundred, you know, $100 or $1,000, but you can get these actually on Amazon. So I think these are this, and that's what you laugh with me too. People used to laugh with me because I have them on my dashboard too. I have one on each side, right? And I figured out how I could do it in the truck, right, without them coming off occasionally. But these are really important because you're going to be able to see the differences. And I've noticed with the storms here, we've had a couple really nasty ones. These have went right off the charts. The other thing I've noticed a big difference on, by the way, Colin, you might want to look at this, is what we did when we had something near, like on a counter on an outlet, it would kind of buzz a little bit. Now it goes like right off the charts. So the electrification of the planet, of the wiring, is magnified and getting exponential. So it's not what it used to be even a year or 2 years ago, not by a long shot. So I'm noticing again, as you go near power lines and stuff, they're actually zipping a little bit more. The other thing as well that we had in our Okanagan groups is actually where you can get these are walkie-talkies. So mine's just, we got a deal down in there that I got a hold of. There was about $120 we got, but it's the Bale thing. It reminds me of Fang all the time, but Bale Fang in here, and just getting some of the different walkie-talkies. This may be something really, really helpful. And I'm one of those ones that have had like 4 basically outages. Now this is weird. The phone has been out, the internet's been out, but the power's been on. Or we've had all 3 done out. So it's been a little bit weird, but these were really handy to have. And you might want to get one of them. Again, these are just simply the little radios. You can go to the dollar store, a camping store, or the Dollarama.
Was kind of the first black artist to go through that.
And you know what? These are really handy because if nothing else, the other night when it went out a couple times, I just wanted to hear what was going on that. So this is something, like I said, this is a $4 or $5 investment. I also have one that actually hand cranks as well in case we use that. But nonetheless, these are handy to have, you guys. And I'm thinking those are some things that we want to have. I had the pleasure actually of doing a couple shows in the last few weeks with also Doc Ram. We affectionately call him Rick, or he's known as officially Dr. Richard Allen Miller. So if you go to richardallenmiller.com or just do a Google search of him, it will be a mind-blowing thing. He is 81 years old, or young, as he would think. And he's a savant, but he basically built the synchrotron when he was 16 years old. So all the light hadron and synchrotrons in the world, that was part of what he was doing. So he's obviously snapped up by the Navy, 60 years ago. But he's got one of the highest clearances, and he surpasses Donald Trump like you wouldn't believe by multiple pay grades and clearances. So I've had the pleasure of talking with him. He's been called back into active service as a consultant because he was one of 3 people in the world that actually knew the background or had some of the physics that he went back even looking at what's happened in the previous epochs or previous floods and stuff like that and documentation. And he can read and actually write in several glyph languages and hieroglyphics that are actually almost extinct now. So these are something that I was talking with him, and he's talking about, it's called the Axial Seamont, which is about 300 miles off the West Coast. of North America. So basically Northern California, we've got Oregon, Washington, of course, British Columbia. These fault lines are actually starting to shake and shimmer. We have a pole shift going on at the same time. We have corneal mass ejections going on, and the KP indexes are getting to be almost the norm these days, plus the change in the Schulman waves. But we've also seen a lot of changes in, if you guys have noticed, the actual magnetosphere of the actual planet. So take a look at that, because in talking with Rick Dockler Miller, he's quite concerned about that. And it's one thing to have a little bit of volcanoes going, but it's growing exponentially and it's expanding. And once it does, it will create a domino effect. And so the first set will be about 3 or 4 actually volcanoes, which are now becoming a little bit more active. And recently, the one just north of Vancouver is actually getting active. So a lot of people don't realize we have a lot of stuff in here as well. And so this is, as Colin says, we're going to have a da-boom sound soon, natural and topical biofields going. But this creates a bit of a tsunami energetically. And so, like I said, when one goes, the next goes, and the next goes, and whatever. So this plate is, as much as we think, oh, well, there's no big deal. I'm like, 10, 12 hours from the coast. I'm 1,000 miles away. Well, no, that's nothing. And there's no borders to any of this. So as that plate shifts, this plate shifts. And so we could see all the dams, and we have a lot of dams that actually provide all the hydro internationally to the state. So the water that people drink in Spokane and Kettle Falls and Portland and Seattle, well, those are off our water tributaries. So if nothing happens here, you're going to see things start going from Revelstoke dams and those 70-some dams that are connected to the Columbia Water Basin treaties. So take a look at that. And of course, that will, ignite basically Yellowstone. That geyser's getting a little bit more active again. So start watching these things. There's a lot of people talking and putting it on their social news feeds. They're giving you the, where to be. We have looked at those Michael Skellen maps, which calls the future maps or the Navy maps. There's so many the Zeta Talk things. Everyone's got a version of it. No one knows exactly. They just said it's happening. And let me tell you, I've talked with people, right? I've got genuinely kind friends. And as I call my GK friends, basically, they're like cosmic guardian angels really here. And so what happens is that, they've said that, they are on high command. They're on red alert right now. So, those are the things. So I'm also going to point out something that was a very interesting video I just got the other day. And one of the videos I got yesterday that's passing around, and it's called Military Sovereignty and Cosmic kind of Reality. And it's actually with someone on here. And I've been putting it on my Facebook and all those different things here. It's called Sovereignty, Military Laws, and Cosmic Insights by Dan Oki and Sensei Phil, who's up here. Now, Sensei Phil, by the way, on here, and it's also on a Substack. I will put in actually the chat room right now. On here, what's been going on is that, let's take a look at that here. You guys take a look. You can go on here later. Is that Sensei Phil has been around for a long time. He was actually on some common law and natural tribunals for international peace. And at one point, he was a judge, and I sat ex officio, but I was actually, I was one of the advisors if I needed to. But I haven't been, involved with that for a few years. But I know of which he speaks, because it was all concerns we've had here for numerous years, all of us. And I think it's a brilliant thing that you can take a look at on the Substack, because he brings a lot of points, like right to the point. And I'd say like 95% is bang on here. So we talked about everything in here. He talked about forging, freedom in here, multi-dimensional wars. I mean, it was like buckle up, buttercups. I was like, holy Jesus, this was great, on here. And one of the things too is I happen to know Dan as well that was involved in this story. I didn't realize I knew him through a different thing, but Dan, okay, his wife actually, they were facing actually deportation, because of some stuff that they were doing. And it's ridiculous. I mean, they don't follow anyone's law here. But coming back to what Phil was talking about, he started bringing in about the law of war manual and that there's a continuity of government. And he said Canada is in a state of dishonor. Not only that, but that basically it's a lawless corporation that's been shut down. And because it falls under the subsection, if you go, this corporation owns that corporation, like the parents and how they set this up, is that basically Canada is a, in bankrupt, for it, but part of the United States. And he said, technically, because of that, there are things that, they're weaponized people like the CRA, which is like the IRS for Revenue Canada and taxation, which is all unlawful and illegal and always has been. But it's actually tied to a lot of things here. Because of that, people, if they actually knew where this was, they could stop all their different taxation issues with CRA, because basically there is no law to pay taxes because Trump has put that into place. Now, he brought in Section 11, by the way, and the obligation to exhaust every remedy before the military steps in. And that's why people need to know that this applies to all you little Canadians and everyone in the Commonwealth almost these days, is that basically we wanted to see how that was, and that ties into interference for foreign elections, everything else. So you could actually take all the corporations of Canada and Dominion Computing and everything like that was involved with this. So basically any agent could be charged in the military court for basically being treasonous or high treason. This is huge. So he started touching on also eventually some of the advanced technologies that Trump's been talking about in the last little while about the Golden Dome. And he's talking how this AI or artificial is more of a consciousness that's actually protecting it, and that would act like a tesseract actually, and was used with things because, they started bringing into this play ever since, like he said, even the MH370 incident where the planes went down in 2014. So he got a lot into that, which was some really interesting thing, and talking that you don't have to be a Trump fan, but to realize that there is people are being backed off by off-world tech, but also people that are, below the surface of what's going on, and that these bankrupt corporate entities, right, just like a franchise. So Washington, D.C. and Canada are basically a franchise that has gone down the drain, thank gosh, finally, which is setting into the stage for some of the new financial systems. And, he talked about how the UK would be part of that, France, Germany, would be included on these new kind of paradigms. So I want you to take a look at that. Also, when he talked about the Golden Dome, he talked about it, how it overlaid and correlated to what you call the etheric ley lines or etheric grid. And where that would come into would be Skynet also, and J2, joint all-domain commands and stuff like that. Anyway, so there's some of that in here. So take a look at it. It was really, really interesting. And some of the related articles I thought was great, because they talked about the monetization of human capital, which was really what the injections were for, was to put those inner tracking chips into you. And basically, who needs a birth certificate when you got the little tracking chip right inside you? You could be a dog, a cat, a human, or an ostrich these days. Doesn't matter. The monetization was put into the DNA. And he also talked about, exiting the matrix. He talked a little bit. He's been on some shows too with Cal Washington, with the In Power people. But he says, people, you got to realize this ties to that executive order, and I did a show with Pascal Najati last year, and that was all with the USSF, or again, it's not the United States. It's a company of all the forces, which is the United States Space Force. So, and we went through a lot of the executive orders, particular 13848, so 1384.8, so 138.48. That executive order and how that ties into that, and then the military courts and how the military justice acts is into play, and the uniform code of the Department of the Military, which now oversees and can override basically Canada. So this, I thought, was something like really pretty amazing. So if you guys haven't seen some of that, do take a look at that. That will be in the footnote. So anyway, that was kind of cool. So anyway, I think that would be a really learning experience for a lot of people, because he talked about also like First Nations and Star Nations, how it came into play. And, he talked about what Trump had said later, that once this is all done, hopefully in the next, 2 to 3 years, there would be put into place a council, and that council will be head by women, by head matriarchs. There will be a woman in charge over Canada and the States. And if you listen carefully, it's not the first time they've done a drop on that. So it was kind of interesting. I thought, you're getting back to, again, some of the original laws, again, who do they follow? Who's their, lodge mama too, right? Anyway, that was a really fascinating thing. So I don't know if anyone's got anything else to add in here. But yeah, I just wanted to touch base on some of that. What I thought I could do too, I really want to get people into getting some stuff prepped, making sure you always have at least, 2 to 4 weeks of camping gear, like in case you have to camp in or camp out or bug in or bug out. I think it's really great to have some dehydrated food, making sure you got spring water bottles and several gallons, have a little thing that you've got for a porta potty, whatever your bug out might be. I don't use drugs and antibiotics, but I got enough lavender here and tea tree and about 500-600 other essential oils and herbs. I think that's really important. The other thing I brought out here, it's just not just because I'm a colon hydrotherapist, but when I was nursing, it's one thing to have equipment here, but if you had to do an IV or something, or they run out of supplies within a couple weeks, remember, if this affects our ports and getting shipping, you're not getting anything after a couple of weeks, right? There will be maybe no supplies. You could lose, all your food and stuff like that within a matter of a week or so, if that. But these are something that are really cute. I've used them as a portable shower when I've had to go camping. But these are actually what's called disposable, enema bags. And they look like an IV bag. The only difference is this end gets greased up really well. And there's a couple little holes, probably there you can see a little bit. But those little holes, basically what you do is you brew up about 1 or 2 cups of your favorite tea, or you could put coffee with tea or baking soda or aromatherapy water or frequency water. And basically you put that into the bag here and you grease it up well and you just hang it up. So instead of it going into here like an intravenous, we actually put them into the rectum, because this can be life-saving. Because if you don't have time or equipment to run an IV, the biggest vein or portal opening is the colon. And if you put something in the mouth, it will take time. If you inject something, it will take time. But the colon can start absorbing immediately. So that's why I keep emergency herbal suppositories here, or rectal or anything like that. So like I said, it's nothing for someone to put in some fluids or electrolytes or something like that, or baking soda water. So these are something, they're only about $3-4. So I really advise handing that into there. And I just brought, and this is the small one, by the way, this is a pediatric gauge. These are actually what we use for colon hydrotherapy, right? And so these could be attached to them as well. But I want you to see the difference here on the diameter, okay? This is as thin, it's thinner than actually what my finger is. So this is nothing to slide it in. And they usually have a black mark in here, but you're not going to go any further than 2-3 inches as a rule, unless you know how to do it properly and have extended equipment, which, you got to be trained to get. But nonetheless, these are something I think amazing to have on here. And I wanted to get into a little bit of some of the biofeedback that we're seeing here. So I brought the old Genius out in case you guys haven't seen it. I'm going to bring something, because a lot of people, you hear me talk more about the Genius, but I don't know if you guys can see next to the bear, there's this blue tray up here. That blue tray is off my $30,000 SCIO biofeedback in the old EFPX. So that's a transmitter. Even that transmitter is worth probably about 10 grand still on the market. That is what we used in the old days, because we didn't have the ability. We were on like old, we were hardly basically even doing flip phones and things like that, cell phones. But in here now, what we've got is that the ability is that transmitters are, like I said, you can send an email, you can send anything off iPads or phones. But one of the things I wanted to bring to your attention is that there are different things, like I talked about. If you want to go into things like the neurovisors, these are great little apparatuses that you can actually, sync into some of these really cool new devices. And, you can scan right into there and literally start playing incredible sounds and technology for you. And this is great because it's not expensive to get some of these. And these are actually bloody amazing. So anyway, just in case you haven't known about this, this is where the neurovisor really does come in. And, you can go in and start playing these incredible different things here for cognition, for relaxation, meditation, all sorts of things. So I just was going to bring it to your attention here that what we've got better sleep and meditation. We've got stress reduction, regulating moods. We've got hormones in here. There's stuff for like professional athletes and stuff too. Focus, neuro athletes is another one. And again, you just pick some of these and away you go. It's really kind of fun. So these are the new neuromodulations things that you can actually choose. So I thought, well, wow, I thought I'd show you some of the new stuff that just came out here. The other thing we have too that came out is a BioVibe. And if you haven't seen those are really nice. I'll put some of the links in there if you want to try these out. You can try all of these out for close to a week, by the way, for next to nothing, absolutely nothing. So these are things where you actually put your voice in, and you can actually do the bioacoustics, and it will give you a little report. So it allows you for 5 days to start tuning up, pain, brain gym, hormones, that type of thing. Another one here is the Odyssey, which I absolutely adore too. And these are all, there are 28 programs in here and over 130 frequency protocols you can do. So these are something really simple that you can literally just put in and get your voice going on some of this as it's recording the voice. And then what it will do, it plays what's called isochronic tones. They're not going to sound like wind chimes, but they're designed basically to go here. And so it will scan the actual individual. And then I feel like I'm on Star Trek when it starts scanning and going up and down. So you can always use it with magnetic sensors. You can use it with headphones, of course. And I just love this part because it's like Star Trek going up and down. And it will tell me which one of the 130 programs that I need to go into for Tesla or frequency or energy medicine. So these are very cool. This one is called the Odyssey, by the way. And so in here, it will tell you, do you need, headaches? Is there something for, do you have a chest cold, difficulty breathing? Is it your immune system? There's a whole section on sleep for people having insomnia. Full moon, if you're trying to get your periods back in sync, by the way. Higher self, getting into different things and playing with alpha, delta, theta, gamma, all the different wonderful brain tones you can get into. If you've got pain, there's a whole section for getting into the central and autonomic nervous system. There's a whole thing here on fungus and molds. A lot of people are having problems with that. Gut seems to be huge these days. Hormones, and you can go upper, lower, middle, hormones, whatever you want to. And then one of the ones I love is the music for detox. So in here, when you choose detox, you can go into, is it airway breathing? Is it your guts, your hormones, emotional? There's a thing here for heavy metal detox. So we've got things that will correlate to that. And of course, if people have pain, so we can go into, is it acute pain, chronic pain? And what you're basically going to do is just choose the program based on what your voice has said, and it'll start playing there. So these are only a couple $100. And I mean, it's a big deal. And that way we don't have to go into things that are thousands of dollars. And that's why I really like working with the apps. And one of the things I did yesterday was make sure that my tiny little solar panel and stuff like that was up and ready to go, just in case. If you have things like eco visors or jackeries or stuff like that, it's a great idea to have a backup solar panel. You can get even little ones for your laptops, iPads, or phone that are probably less than about $50 up here. So those are one of the things. The other thing that's really cool is this RIFE that we have. So it's actually done from A to Z. And so you could pick pain or whatever you want, or allergies. And a lot of it, let's say Lyme, Morgellon, things like that. This is an entire RIFE spectrum and code in here. And these go basically from 1 to 20,000 megahertz in here. So this is actually some of the things that I think are great in here. So it's got a great intro here, and it talks to you a little bit about what one of these different things are here. The insight. Again, this is the Royal Raymond Rife's frequencies in there. So between 1 hertz and 20,000 hertz, which is usually where most things are within the spectrum. But the great thing is if you want to add your own frequencies, which I do. So for example, when you heard all of a sudden, I don't know if you heard, but Ed Group in the last couple of days has put out his videos that correlate to Mike Adams at Natural News. And what they have said is that, hey guys, we're finding under the newest electron microscopes, because there's been an advancement in the last little while, and there's about 30, 40 of them in the world. So Ed's got them in Florida, and Mike's got them in basically going into Texas, and they are finding the same damn thing. People are getting T-cruzi, they're getting toxoplasmosis. They are finding nanotechnology in almost everyone's blood, even to the point of cesium-137. So radioactive inhalation particles are being taken in. So it's not everything in there. And I like, oh, look who's here. It's Mr. Bauer Media. you better have a show tonight so I can be on yours. Anyway, Robert Bauer is in the room tonight, and he's got a very apt thing. Of course he is. He's very intelligent. He's a genius too. So if you haven't checked out his and conversations with Robert, please do. He's also got a great thing at music, and he's one of the heads of the Geezer Geeks. Anyway, I think am I an honorary geezerette? I don't know. Anyway, too young for that. Anyway, knowledge you won't get anywhere else, and that's a great point. So this is one of the things I wanted to bring to your attention on here is where to add this in, and I really liked adding this stuff in. So I'm kind of excited that I see like people like Dr. Ed Group, who I've been in Zoom rooms with, and David Wolf and Mike Adams are now correlating what I've been saying for many, many years. So that serratia that they're finding in the blood and that cesium 137 that's really getting them a little scared. I've been screaming at it for years. So it's kind of nice. But anyway, there's one of the ones that we can see. And of course, my next one in there too is I talked about, the neurovisor, but is the Genius Biofeedback. And this is something that I actually went to go do because there was an older friend of mine, and he's almost like the father of one of my other girlfriends up north. And I've spoken to a lot of their groups, to be in for sovereignty meetings and stuff like that and getting people prepped. But someone went and dragged this Colin Ross or Big Bear, dragged one of the elders out to that farm. And I'm like, oh gosh, I know what it is because I just remoted in with our technology. But of course, it doesn't take rocket science to know what's going on. Anyway, I said, I phoned him up. I said, call me back. And he did. And so I'm clearing him with as much as we can because you don't know. You're not usually going to see symptoms, right away, because what's going to happen is you're going to see very washed out auras. Like as they come to you and they get black and they get gray. And I don't even think the camera will pick it up. Can you see that beigey brown? That's like someone's aura is just being drained or that's someone that's being, basically loose harvest. They're literally fading away. Their adrenals are burning out, right? And I don't see it very vibrant. So that was really cool. So I called him up and I said, I just love you. And I said, I'm going to gift you this today because you need that. And I don't want to see people. And I can tell when they're on the brinks of their D-dimers going up and they're about to have a stroke because they've gone to the little play bouncy castles. And again, this is not only negligent. I think they should all be charged with crimes against the nation and charged against humanity as well. So there you go. That makes them much better. I'm a little happier right now that it's not going to topple over, hopefully in the next week or two. And this is the thing is that you guys don't know is what you can be a asymptomatic carrier, right? This really does, terrible things. And there's a thing called stealth viruses. This is why, and actually you heard those ding dings. Well, that's my telegram going off from different supposedly common law groups in the areas here. And they're taking quite exception to what I'm saying here because I'm warning about going to that ostrich farm and they're all promoting it. And this is terrible when I see organizations like BC Rising and other things that in the area they're supposed to be promoting health, wellness, abundance, and things like that. And what do? And they're trying to raise money for the ostrich farm, or they're raising it for a medical doctor that got into trouble, right? They're not supporting the natural people. They're not supporting the homeopathics. They're not supporting the animal sanctuaries. They're not promoting anything to do with protection of animals. These ostriches, like people, have been borged. And they cease to be human, or they cease to be an actual hereditary or an organic ostrich the minute that they started putting gene editing antigens into them. And I don't care what you call it, live, dead, recombinant, doesn't matter to me. You've created a action reaction. They want to call it spike and they want to do their spin drifting little, bullshit thing for people and call it what it is. They're lying to the public. And they're relying on people's ignorance. And when you ignore natural law or the creator's law or the treaties that were set back into place, you are ignorant. It means you are ignoring the law. And that's exactly the definition of it. So those are some of the things in there. So I'm going to put some wonderful things out for you guys today. And what I'm going to do as I put in this wonderful thing and all these wonderful frequencies, I'm going to play this in the background so everyone's getting this. So if anyone's been in touch with anyone or, gone to the store, I was laughing today as I was going to get my posters out to the local, newsletter here and out to the store. And I went for a walk this afternoon and I put the posters out that we were doing for our crystal journey and me teaching this weekend, right? So it's unusual. I haven't taught very much in the public, too much in the last couple of years, because it's usually on Skype just for my own protection, but also for other people. It's much easier to go in and seriously do telemedicine. I know people always want to be with us live, and I guess that's great in the back. You know, I've got massage rooms and everything else and all the bells and toys and whistles here. However, what happens is that I would prefer to actually do it here as your first initial call. And the reason why is because I can go into your house. I do house calls. I've gone into people's bathrooms. I've opened up the pharmacy cabinet, you know, behind the, you know, mirror in the bathroom. I've gone into the garage. I've gone to whatever you may think that may hit me that may be a contributing factor, you know. And very quickly, I've had people actually having heart attacks and on the verge of strokes that could crawl to the, you know, they called me and they're like just about to die. It's either me or the ambulance. And so they opened up the kitchen cupboard. I said, okay, let's pull this cream of tartar out. I need some baking soda right now. And I don't even care which brand right now. I just want something's going to work. And let's get that borax going. And she happened to have some clove oil and bang, I was making a concoction and we got some salt water right into her. And bang, that woman's still around here to this day. And we didn't have to call an ambulance. So those are really cool things. And that's why it's nice to do telemedicine. And for those of you, I don't know if you know Colin, but in the States, Robert would probably know, is that they've gone into one worse than Obamacare, is that now what they've gone is that you can actually call in, put all your symptoms in, check off the boxes, and AI will actually put all the drugs for you. It will actually recommend which pharmaceuticals and prescriptions to get. Isn't that evil? And then you can get just a doctor to sign it off, right? And send you your prescription, and it can be delivered to anywhere within usually a day or two. Isn't that insane? So I don't know if you guys, you didn't see at the bottom here, but there's a little thing here. It says Genie AI right back over here. No, it's hard to say, but that's what it says. It says Genie AI. And basically our Genius AI is basically ancient artifact of intelligence, hopefully. And what we can do is actually do something similar. Is it will say, hey, your vitamin B2 is low, and your vitamin C is too low, and your iron's too low. And based on this, you might want to look at doing some zozanda berries, or you might want to look at some camu, or look at these 2-3 foods, herbs, or, you know, things rather than giving you supplements. So I think that's it's a great place to start, because we need to be wild foraging and get wild ourselves. So anyway, those are some of the things, and I'm so excited. I got some more tuning forks today. They're hot off the press. I had mine actually get taken a long time ago. And so one of the things I'm going to highly recommend to people is getting these. They're not that expensive. And I got them color coded because they're just fun. And I like to have fun. So anyway, Robert's got a thing here. Remote diagnosis and healing using frequencies is an integrative and complementary modality of now and in the future. Karen is blazing the trail for humanity. God, I wish you were up here. We would have so much fun. We would just have a party. And like, you know, Colin, you have to like fly over, you know, because seriously, we got like, this is the hot spring capital of the world. And in talking to Dr. Rick Miller, he wants to set up in the Okanagan. I'm okay because I'm still within hours of all my hot tubs. And there's hot tubs in the northern Okanagan, by the way. I don't know if I've ever talked about them, but I got some secret ones up there. I don't think I will tell too many people about. But the setups will be in the northern Okanagan and Shuswaps. That's why they call it the houseboat capital of the world. But anyway, so I love these. You know, I don't play hockey very well. I had figure skates, but I wasn't that bad with the sticker tail, let me tell you. But anyway, these hockey pucks I prefer actually than getting these little rubber mallets. These are cute things I used to use, you know, in medicine and nursing, right? We would check all your reflexes and make sure that you were still alive. It was great. Otherwise, people have used them as mallets. But if you actually get going with a hockey puck, way better. So I'm going to recommend getting a few of these. These are on Amazon, and they weren't that much, you guys, you know. So anyway, getting some in here. Are you guys able to hear some of these frequencies? So these are some of the ones in here. That's 639. And then we got 741. You can also go into very low ones. And this is, you can see, very stealthy. But this is another one called a weighted tuning fork. And the weighted ones are a little bit better on the physical. So this is actually, you may not be able to pick that up. But you know what? When you put it here, you're doing the vibration. And so this has been some of the best, probably Kundalini. And I won't go into that too much, but these are excellent Kundalini experiences. I've done that with lots of clients. And what I've done is when they're lying on the massage bed. And of course, I have a hotted, heated amethyst crystal bed, a couple $1,000 detox bed in the infrared. So you're warmed in this already experience. We create a 2-foot bubble around you, an EMF field, Faraday cage, and we put the oils on and marinate you. And then once we get that done, we start using all these tuning forks, and you can go up and down the spine or right on the bottom here or on the acupuncture points. And so this is very much one notch up from what you get from a chiropractor with an activator, which I have here as well. So those are some really cool things you might want to look at, and I highly suggest that. So anyway, this is my frequency Friday at 5 p.m. And I think that's about what we're going to do for today. So I'm getting really excited. We hit our local market today. I've done a bunch of people today for sessions, distance, and a lot of people questioning me about what was going on, like I said, with the G7 summit here, with what's going on with the pole shift. You know, I had people calling me in from Vancouver just to find out where's a better spot. And hopefully I've got a few friends that are not going to be like, you know, getting caught up into stuff in the next 6 to 8 weeks here. So anyway, be mobile, have fun, and we will catch you later. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section, and we'll get back to you. If you'd like to have a session, you can certainly call me on Facebook, and you can also get a hold of me on below here, and I will monitor the bottom comments for a little while. So have a great weekend and look forward to seeing you guys. Take care and enjoy it. Get your popcorn. Organic. We've got, you know, Indian popcorn. It's purple.